The international bestseller, The Miracle Morning. The 6 Habits That'll Transform Your Life Before 8 a.m. Written by Hal Elrod. Read by Theodore Zephyr. Introduction. My story, and why yours is the one that matters. 3rd of December, 1999. Life was good. No, it was great. At 20 years old, my first year of college was behind me. I had spent the last 18 months becoming one of the top producing sales reps for a $200 million marketing company, breaking company records and earning more money than I had ever imagined I would be at that age. I was in love with my girlfriend, had a supportive family, and the best friends a guy could ask for. I was truly blessed. You might say I was on top of the world. There was no way I could have known that this was the night my world would end. 11:32 p.m., driving 70 miles per hour southbound on Highway 99. We'd left the restaurant and our friends behind. It was just the two of us now. My girlfriend, tired from the evening's events, was dozing in the passenger seat, but not me. I was wide awake, eyes glued to the road in front, waving my finger in the air like a baton as I quietly conducted the melodies of Tchaikovsky. Still in a state of euphoria from the night's events, sleep was the furthest thing from my mind. Rocketing down the freeway in my brand new white Ford Mustang, I was only 2 hours removed from giving the best speech of my life. I had received my first standing ovation, and I was elated. In fact, I desperately wanted to shout out my feelings of gratitude to anyone that would listen, but my girlfriend was asleep, so she was no use. I considered calling my parents, but it was late. They might already be in bed. I should have called, but I simply had no way of knowing that that moment would be my last opportunity to speak to my parents, or anyone, for quite some time. An unimaginable reality. No, I don't recall seeing the headlights of a massive Chevrolet truck coming directly at me, but they were. In an instant of perverse fate, the full-size Chevy pickup, traveling at an estimated 80 miles per hour, smashed head-on into my undersized and undermatched Ford Mustang. The following seconds played out in slow motion, Tchaikovsky's commanding melodies orchestrating our wicked dance. The metal frames of our two vehicles collided, screaming and screeching as they twisted and broke. The Mustang's airbags exploded with enough force to render us unconscious. My brain, still traveling at 70 miles per hour, smashed into the front of my skull, destroying much of the vital brain tissue that made up my frontal lobe. Upon impact, the tail end of my Mustang was shoved into the lane on my right, making my driver's side door an unavoidable target for the car behind me. A Saturn sedan, driven by a 16-year-old, crashed into my door at 70 miles per hour. The door collapsed into the left side of my body. The frame of the metal roof caved in on my head, slicing open my skull, nearly severing my left ear. The bones of my left eye socket were crushed, leaving my eyeball dangerously unsupported. My left arm broke, severing the radial nerve in my forearm and shattering my elbow, while my fractured humerus bone pierced the skin behind my bicep. My pelvis was given the impossible task of separating the Saturn's front end from my car's center console, and failed. It fractured in 3 separate places, and finally, my femur, the largest bone in the human body, snapped in half, and one end speared through the skin of my thigh and tore a hole in my black dress slacks. Blood was everywhere. My body was destroyed, and my brain permanently damaged. Unable to withstand the immense physical pain, my body shut down, my blood pressure dropped, and everything went black as I plunged into a coma. You only live twice? What happened next was nothing short of incredible, what many have called a miracle. The emergency rescue teams arrived, and using the jaws of life, firefighters cut my bloody body from the wreckage. When they did, I bled out. My heart stopped beating, and I stopped breathing. Clinically, I was dead. The paramedics immediately put me on a rescue helicopter and worked determinedly to save my life. 6 minutes later, they succeeded. My heart started to beat again, and I breathed clean oxygen. Thankfully, I was alive. I spent 6 days in a coma and woke up to the news that I might never walk again. After 7 challenging weeks of recovery and rehabilitation in the hospital, learning to walk all over again, I was released to my parents' care, back into the real world, with 11 fractured bones, permanent brain damage, and a now ex-girlfriend who broke up with me in the hospital. Life as I knew it would never be the same, and believe it or not, this would turn out to be a good thing. While coming to grips with my new reality wasn't easy, and at times I couldn't help but wonder, why did this happen to me? I had to take responsibility for getting my life back. Instead of complaining about how things should be, I embraced how things were. I stopped putting energy into wishing my life were any different, into wishing bad things didn't happen, and instead I focused 100% on making the best of what I had. Since I couldn't change the past, I focused on moving forward. I dedicated my life to fulfilling my potential and achieving my dreams so I could discover how to empower others to do the same. And as a result of choosing to be genuinely grateful for all that I had, unconditionally accepting of all that I didn't, and accepting total responsibility for creating all that I wanted, this potentially devastating car accident ultimately became one of the best things that ever happened to me. Hinging on my belief that everything happens for a reason, but that is our responsibility to choose the most empowering reasons for the challenges, events and circumstances of our lives, I used my accident to fuel a triumphant comeback. 2000. A year that begins with me lying in a hospital bed, broken but not defeated, ends quite differently. Despite not having a car, even less of a short-term memory, equipped with every excuse in the world to sit at home and feel sorry for myself, I returned to my sales position at Cutco. I had the best year in my career and finished number 6 in the company amongst over 60,000 active sales reps. All this while still recovering physically, mentally, emotionally, and financially from my wreck. 2001. Having learned some invaluable life lessons from my experience, it was time to turn my adversity into inspiration and empowerment for others. I started speaking and sharing my story at high schools and colleges. The responses from students and faculty were overwhelmingly positive, and I embarked on a mission to impact youth. In 2002, my good friend, John Berghoff, encouraged me to write a book about my accident, to further inspire others, so I started writing. But as quickly as I started, I stopped. I'm no writer. Essays in high school were challenging enough, let alone a book, and after many repeated attempts that always ended with me staring at the computer screen, frustrated, it didn't look like a book was on the cards. I did, however, finish in Cutco's top 10 for the 2nd year in a row. In 2004, to try my hand at management, I accepted the position of sales manager for the Sacramento Cutco office. Our team went on to finish number 1 in the company and break the all-time annual record. That autumn, I also reached my highest personal sales milestone and was inducted into the company's Hall of Fame. Feeling that I'd accomplished everything I wanted to accomplish with Cutco, it was time to pursue my dream of becoming a professional keynote motivational speaker. I might even write that book that has been swimming around in my head for the last couple of years. I also met Ursula. We were inseparable, and I had the feeling that she could be the one. 2005. Sitting in the audience of what I intended to be my last Cutco conference, I came to a painful realization. I have never fulfilled my potential. Ouch. Sure, I'd won some awards and broken some sales records, but watching from my seat as the 2 top performers collect the highest annual award that Cutco offered, the coveted Rolex, I realized that I'd never fully committed, at least not for an entire year. I wouldn't be able to live with myself if I had left the company before fulfilling my potential. I had to give it one more try, but this time, I would give it my all. Despite the late start to the year, I set a goal to nearly double my best sales year ever. I was terrified, but committed. I also concluded that I had an obligation to write the book and share my story with the world. I worked 365 days straight, selling and writing, with a level of discipline that eluded me for the first 25 years of my life. I was fueled by passion to do what I had never done before, to venture from my painfully comfortable realm of mediocrity from which I operated my entire life into the space of being extraordinary. By the year's end, I reached both of my goals, more than doubling my previous best sales year, and completing my first book. It's official. Anything is possible when you are committed. Spring 2006. My first book, Taking Life Head On. How to Love the Life You Have While You Create the Life of Your Dreams, hit number 7 on the Amazon bestseller list. But then, the unthinkable happened. My publisher, he fled the country with 100% of my best-selling royalties and was never heard from again. My parents were devastated, but I was not. If there's one thing that I've learned from my car accident, is that there is no point in dwelling on or feeling bad about aspects of our lives that we cannot change. So I didn't. I've also learned that by focusing on what we can learn from our challenges, and how we use them to add value to the lives of others, we can turn any adversity into advantage. So I did. 2006. Without almost zero knowledge of what the profession entails, I accidentally became a life and business success coach with a 40-something financial advisor who asked me if I would coach him. I agreed, and I ended up loving it. My first client saw measurable results in his life and business, and I was passionate about helping others as their coach. At just 26, the odds of me succeeding as a professional coach were probably slim to none. But it is so in line with my purpose in life, I went for it anyway. My coaching business took off, and I went on to coach hundreds of entrepreneurs, salespeople, and business owners. Shortly after, I gave my first paid speech, and I was hired by the Boys and Girls Clubs of America to be featured as a keynote speaker at their national conference. Although I'd been speaking to large business audiences made up primarily of salespeople, managers, and executives since 1998, I decided that with my spiky hair, somewhat youthful appearance, and the nickname Yo Pal Hal, impacting youth was the way to go. So I started speaking and sharing my story at local high schools and colleges. 2007. The year my life fell apart again. The United States economy crashed. Overnight, my income was cut in half. My clients couldn't afford coaching, and I couldn't afford my bills, including my house payment. I was $425,000 in debt and devastated. Mentally, physically, emotionally, and financially, I hit rock bottom. Never in life have I felt so helpless, overwhelmed, and depressed. At a loss for how to fix my life yet again, I desperately sought answers to insurmountable problems. I read self-help books, attended seminars, and even hired a coach for myself, but nothing worked. 2008, the year my life began to turn around. I finally confessed to a close friend how bad things had gotten, which I had successfully kept a secret up to this point. His question, "Are you exercising?" And my answer, "I can barely get out of bed in the morning, so no," prompted his response, "Start running. It'll help you feel better and think clearer." Ugh, I hated running. I was desperate though, so I took his advice and went for a run. The realizations I had on this run became a turning point in my life, and I was inspired to create a daily personal development routine that I hoped would enable me to develop into the person I needed to be to solve my problems and turn my life around. Incredibly, it worked. Virtually every area of my life transformed so fast, I called it my miracle morning. Autumn 2008. I continued developing my miracle morning, experimenting with various personal development practices and sleep schedules, and researching how much sleep we really need. My findings completely shattered the paradigms and perceptions held true by most people, including me. Loving the results, I shared it with my coaching clients who loved it just as much. They told their friends, family, and co-workers about it, and unexpectedly I began seeing people I'd never met posting on Facebook and Twitter about their miracle mornings. 2009. Arguably my best year yet. I married the woman of my dreams, we got pregnant, and gave birth to our daughter. My coaching business was thriving. I had a waiting list for clients, and my speaking career took off. I was off giving talks and keynote messages at high schools, colleges, and corporate and non-profit conferences. The miracle morning spread like wildfire. I got emails every day and people telling me it was changing their life. I knew it was my responsibility to share it with the world, and that writing a book was the best way to do that. Slowly, I began to write again. And make no mistake, I'm still no writer, but I am committed. As my good friend Romatio Fulcher always says, there is always a way when you're committed. 2012. The book you hold in your hands, or the one that you hear, the one I've dedicated over 3 years of my life to writing, The Miracle Morning, was finally published. I was blown away when it quickly became not only #1 Amazon bestseller, but in its first year of publication, became one of the highest rated books in the history of Amazon, currently with over 500 reviews, averaging 4.7 out of 5 stars. More important is what the reviews actually said. People's lives were being changed, and it works for all types of people, from stay-at-home mums to CEOs. The Miracle Morning gives people the ability to improve any or literally every area of their lives. Taking your life head on. I share my story with you to offer evidence of what can be overcome and achieved, no matter where you are in life right now or how difficult your challenges may be. If I could go from being found dead, told I would never walk again, going broke and feeling so depressed that I didn't want to get out of bed in the morning, to creating the life I've always wanted, then there are no legitimate excuses for you not to overcome any limitations that have held you back from achieving everything you want in life. None, zip, nada. I believe it is crucial for us to embrace the perspective that anything another person has overcome or accomplished is simply evidence that anything, and I mean anything, we need to overcome or want to accomplish is possible for us, no matter what our past or current circumstances. It begins with accepting total responsibility for every aspect of your life and refusing to blame anyone else. The degree to which you accept responsibility for everything in your life is precisely the degree of personal power you have to change or create anything in your life. It is important to understand that responsibility is not the same as blame. While blame determines who is at fault for something, responsibility determines who is committed to improving things. Thinking back to my accident, while the drunk driver was at fault for my crash, I was responsible for improving my life, for making my circumstances what I wanted them to be. It really doesn't matter who is at fault. All that matters is that you and I are committed to leaving the past in the past and making our lives exactly the way we want them to be, starting today. It's your time, and this is your story. Know that wherever you are in life right now is both temporary and exactly where you are supposed to be. You have arrived at this moment to learn what you must learn so you can become the person you need to be to create the life you truly want, even when life is difficult or challenging. Especially when life is difficult or challenging, the present is always an opportunity for us to learn, grow, and become better than we've ever been before. You are in the process of writing your life story. And no good story is without a hero or heroine overcoming their fair share of challenges. In fact, the bigger the challenges, the better the story. So since there are no restrictions and no limits to where your story goes from here, what do you want the next page to say? The good news is that you have the ability to change or create anything in your life starting right now. I'm not saying you won't have to work for it, but you can quickly and easily attract and create anything you want for life by developing into the person who is capable of doing so. That's what this book is about, helping you become the person you need to be to create everything you've ever wanted. There are no limits. The next chapter of your life is about to begin.